welcome to this Rain Taxi virtual event featuring Ann Patchett in conversation with Kate DiCamillo. I'm Eric Lorber, the director of Rain Taxi. I suspect most of you watching today already know about our intrepid nonprofit literary organization, but if you don't, please check out our website anytime after this event to learn more about all the things we do to advocate for literature and to consider becoming a member. Just an hour ago, I sent the pages of our upcoming 104th issue to the printing press. And when they come back all bound and smelling of fresh ink, we'll be mailing them to our members, and we'd love to include you. As you listen today to the two extraordinary people I'm about to introduce, I want to remind you of all the ways you can participate. Many of you are already chiming in on the chat, which is quite joyful. Keep sharing your observations. If you have a question for the authors, put that in the Ask a Question box. We'll get to as many of those as possible toward the end of the event. There's a donate button somewhere on your screen, and if you're moved to use that, please feel free. As a nonprofit organization, Rain Taxi is proud to earn funding from places like the National Endowment for the Arts and the Minnesota State Arts Board, but we also depend on support from individual readers who want literary culture to thrive. And finally, if you haven't yet purchased these precious days, or you've realized you need more than one copy, you can buy the book by using that button. Don't forget that when you buy a book at a literary event, you are supporting the author, their publisher, the event host, and a great independent bookstore based in an actual community. Tonight, that's our friends at Major Twin Booksellers in Minneapolis. With these precious days now in my hands, it's my great pleasure to introduce Ann Patchett and Kate DiCamillo. Devoted readers of Ann Patchett novels like Bel Canto and State of Wonder, to name a couple of local favorites, know that every book by this author feels special. But I think this book takes that specialness to new heights. Maybe it's because it repeatedly finds ways to express, with the author's trademark no-nonsense forthrightness, a kindness and a care that we've all been learning are as vital as groceries. Maybe it's because the title piece touched the hearts of so many readers around the world when it appeared last year and is now surrounded by kindred essays that amplify its big humanity. Maybe it's just because Ann Patchett is a really, really great writer. Today, Rain Taxi celebrates its being in the world and hers because it's indeed her birthday, as many of you Google sleuths out there have noticed, by presenting her in conversation with the one and only Kate DiCamillo. Here in Minnesota, we like to remind everyone that she's one of us, but the truth is, and I say this without hyperbole, she is simply one of the greatest children's book authors on the planet. Ann's essay about Kate in this volume goes far in explaining why that is. It feels somehow like an extra gift that such magnificent writers should be dear friends. That we get to visit with them tonight is a gift indeed. Go ahead and hoot and holler at home as we welcome Ann Patchett and Kate DiCamillo.
Well, and
gosh,
that was a beautiful introduction. Eric, I know that you said all your beautiful words and then you left, but it's kind of like it's shut us up a little bit.
He may still be listening, so just in case he hasn't turned his computer off and gone straight home. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah,
or
thank
probably
you.
is already straight home. Thank you. That was really, really lovely.
And
hi, Kate.
Hi, happy birthday.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, and I know that you've been talking a lot about this book and these precious days in general, but I'm gonna lead this conversation, Ann.
And as opposed to the other conversations that we have just normally, that you never lead, that you just your shy and retiring chipmunk self just curls up and answers
that
questions.
is another legitimate part of me, Ann, although you insist that you've never seen it.
I've never.
Let's start at the beginning, which
is
the
very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Yeah, your fathers, and you know, so I read this and in my advanced reading copy, which it's funny that this is so dear to me because it's so marked up, and I have gotten the book as gifts for other people, but I feel like this is my book that I want to live in. I want to talk about your dad. So, and I want to read to you, if that's
Oh,
okay.
Sure.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that's not okay, Ann? Right. Okay. Moving right along.
I was gonna say, like, just don't ask me to sign anything right now. Maybe that would be a
And
gift.
is Sparky still there?
He's asleep, but
Look.
look at that.
Okay. All right. Oh. Okay. This has nothing to do with
This is a joke that's not going to get old all night long.
It's like you're putting on a puppet show, Ann. Okay, put him down. Okay, so I'm on page 16, Ann.
I don't have a book, just wait.
I know, it's the Three Fathers essay. And this is what I want to read to you because I've read this multiple times, and each time it stops me, and it's underlined in here. It talks about your dad. Wanting you to be a dental hygienist, which in and of itself is pretty funny, and trying to talk you out of being a writer, and wanting you to play volleyball and tennis. So you know where I am. So now this is you and Heather being dragged to the alley behind the grocery store at 6:00 a.m. so that you could hit tennis balls against the back wall of Ralph's. I was no better at tennis than I was at volleyball, but my sister would hit and hit and hit. Every time he sent me down the alley to retrieve the scattered balls, I thought, I'll show you. I will not hit or play or join or score, but I will write and I will show you. I'm not done. It turns out that having a hard wall to hit your tennis balls against is what gives them bounce. Having someone who believed in my failure more than my success kept me alert. It made me fierce. Without ever meaning to, my father taught me at a very early age to give up on the idea of approval. I wish I could bottle that freedom now and give it to every young writer I meet with an extra bottle for the women. I would give them the ability both to love and not to care. I cannot imagine what it would be like to come across those words if you were a young writer or somebody who is just, it doesn't matter if you're young or not, you're just starting out. That is so, nobody ever really says it. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny on the interview-a-thon that one goes on around a publication of a book, and having conversations with my dad, and I keep finding myself wanting to defend him from my own explanation of him. Right? Like, people are like, oh, your dad, he didn't believe in you. And I'm like, wait a minute. He really did. He really loved me. And
he did.
And I keep thinking, my dad's parents came to California during the Depression. He was the third of 7 children. He was the first child to be born in this country. They were crazy poor people. They were not crazy, but they were just extremely poor people. And my father went into the seminary just after high school and then dropped out because he wanted to be a cop. It was a tough life for all of those Patchetts. And my father wanted me to be safe. He loved me and he wanted me to have a job where I would have a paycheck and I would have health insurance and I would have a roof over my head. And I didn't care about any of those things. I just wanted to make art. And the more I talk about it and think about it, the more I think, it wasn't like my dad was some sort of a cretin who didn't want me to make art.
That's so clear, Ann. Anybody who reads the book. Yes, it's
Is it clear because we're friends and you know all of this
already?
No,
it's clear because of the book. I know that. I think that it is such a gift to give to anybody because we are so hung up on approval
Yeah,
and praise in
I
this
just don't care.
society. Yeah,
I don't.
and you really genuinely, I mean, part of it is who you are, but part of it is having the wall to hit your tennis balls against. And that it's something to tell parents about, to tell writers about, and to tell anybody about how to live life. That it's okay to push against things. I think that it's when I talk to young writers that were used to, when with the PowerPoint, you've heard me say this before, and I asked them how many rejection letters I got. And before that, I asked them, okay, when you finally have the story and you send it out, what do you get back? And the answer is, money. That's
Love and praise, right?
right. Love, praise, and money.
Right.
And it's none of those things. You get the rejection letter. Okay, how many rejection letters did I get? And the most daring kid will go up to 50. And it's triple digits. And I think that everybody who wants to make art needs to hear that, whether they're a kid or an adult. It's not easy, and you have to do it for another reason than trying to get somebody's approval. You have to do it
Right.
because you need and want to do it, and the doing of it changes you, which leads me to Eudora Welty.
Wait, let's stay with this for one
I
moment.
see. I knew that you were gonna try to I have my carefully prepared notes, and I knew they were gonna go right out the window. Okay, let's stay with it.
I just wish we were in the same room so we could actually arm wrestle now, and the people at home could watch it. Approval is such a funny thing, and when I think about all of this, and I think about my dad, and I think about the hard wall that gives you bounce, I think a lot about Catholicism too. And my dad was really the embodiment of Catholicism. And to me, what Catholicism was, and I loved it, was there was an answer to everything. There was a yes or no answer to every conceivable question. Can I do this? Yes. Can I do that? No. and it gives you space to say, well, no, I don't agree with that, as opposed to living in a world where the answer is, well, how do you feel? And what works for you? And why would you make that decision? It's like, yes or no. And that's it.
And it's also, it gives you a framework, right? It's the same as you and I have talked about this before. When you think of, okay, how long is this going to be? We get so excited about thinking about what a finished book will be like and working towards that, because then you're free once you know the framework of something. And it's the same thing. You can play within the framework, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
okay.
And all of those things were a particular kind of framework. And actually, it's one of the things that I think all the time about writing nonfiction, that I grew up writing for newspapers and magazines where they would say, we want a 700-word essay, we want a 2,000 word, we want a 1,200 word. Those things meant very specific and very different things to me. Whereas now it's like, write whatever you want for as long as you want, because it's going to be published on the internet. And if you want to write something that's 50 pages long, it doesn't make any difference because it's the internet. So you don't have that thing to push up again. Form, be it in an assignment or a person who seemingly is disapproving, it's just so great to have that structure. Yeah.
Form gives you freedom. It seems contradictory, but it's not. And I was just taking notes on something as I was reading before we had this precious talk about thinking, okay, well, if I made it this long, and then I felt something inside of me ping. It's like, okay, I can see the trim size, I can see the format, and then it's like, okay, now I can play. Okay, Ann, I do want to talk though about Eudora Welty, because this is an essay that when you and I became friends, you were working on this essay as an introduction to the new edition of the collected stories, right?
Yeah.
And so I read it then. and then I've read it 3 times since then, and it gets better every time. And there's so much wisdom in it about, okay, I'm going to take us. You don't have a book because you've sold them all.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah. So there aren't any books in Nashville, at least. But I'm going to take us to page 86, where you write about a Eudora Welty story, A Visit of Charity. This is just like one of my favorite bits. Can I read it to you?
Yeah, sure.
My introduction to Welty was her story, A Visit of Charity, which I read in a 7th grade English textbook. I was 12, slightly younger than the story's campfire girl. Marion is an unsympathetic centerpiece, wanting only to deliver her plant to some old lady and get her credit points. But I was terrified for her nevertheless, as she is shoved into the tiny, sick-smelling room with 2 old ladies in their claw-like hands. They may have been mad or demented, but mostly they are desperate for her company and her ability to disrupt the boredom of their day. By 12, I had lived enough to have met old people who wanted to swallow me up. And so my heart went out to this selfish girl. But reading it again, at an age much closer to the crones than the campfire girl, I find my sympathies have shifted. God help those old women stuffed away in a shabby care facility to wait for their deaths. They have no one to turn their frustrations on but each other. I look at Marion and her little red cap and think, kid, it wouldn't kill you to sit down for a few minutes and brighten their day.
That's going to be us, Kate. That's going to be the 2 of us.
This is
in the little room with the twin beds.
This is a testament to Eudora Welty, but also to what literature can do, right? Where you can find yourself time. It's like how you never step into the same river twice, right?
Right.
And you can find yourself again and again, a different self in a work of fiction that makes you understand yourself and understand who you are. And it's like, to me, it is the most amazing thing in the world, that gift of what a story can do, the language can do, and the heart of it, which this is, you said on page 88, still with Eudora Welty, her style shifts with allegiance to nothing but the compassionate truth. And that, to me, is what we're always after in fiction, and the alchemy that it works on the person who is writing it as well. You can find that compassionate truth, that radiant patience in yourself for humanity when you're writing fiction, and you can give it to somebody else. It helps us to see each other, and it helps us to understand ourselves. So did I go on too much about that? Do you? Yeah, I can see that you're looking. It's just amazing to me. It seems like a gift every time, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How we change and how we measure our change in literature. I always think, when I was 21, I read Anna Karenina, and have I ever told you this story?
I don't think
that
so.
I just was obsessed with Anna and Vronsky, but I hated Kitty and Levin and the peasants. They were so boring. And then when I was 50, I read Anna Karenina again, and I found Anna and Vronsky unbearable. And Karenin was the hero of the story, and I adored Kitty and Levin and the peasants. And the book hadn't changed.
The book hadn't changed. And the compassionate truth is still in there. It's just that you take a different compassionate truth each time as you keep on growing. I want to get to the bookstore and you in the airport, but I before I leave compassionate truth, I want to go to Charlie Strobel.
Boy, you've got a plan here.
I do have a plan.
You got a map, man.
You know, so much has been said about this book and death, which is on every page. But there's also
it's the happy, uplifting book about death. That's my
there's so
elevator
much
pitch.
love, and there's so much love. There's so much compassionate truth in what you do, and you write about Charlie Strobel. This is what's the title of that one, Ann? I have the
Worthless
page.
Servant.
Yeah, and he says to you about one of his problems that a problem person. I realized that Doy was not my problem to solve, but my brother to love. I decided on the spot that I was going to love him and not expect anything from him. And overnight he changed. Is that not beautiful? And is it not connected to what Eudora Welty does as well? When you let people be themselves, when you treat them with compassionate truth, then you get to love them, and it changes you to do that. Okay, you can talk for a minute, and
just for one second. I don't know if we've ever talked about this before. I have such a problem with Flannery O'Connor's stories, and I think she you know, she's a magnificent writer, and certainly when I was young, not now that I'm 58 today, but when I was like 56, people were always talking to me about Flannery O'Connor because I was Catholic and Southern, and I never identified with Flannery O'Connor, and I will go so far as to say I never liked Flannery O'Connor. I liked the nonfiction. I respected her craft enormously, but she has no compassion for her characters. Right. No compassion for anyone. And Welty just had so much.
It's funny because there's, Flannery O'Connor, which I don't know the last time I reread the collected Flannery O'Connor, but there's such a brutality to it. And I remember being delighted by it in college, right? It was funny. But
it was always funny at someone else's expense.
Yes, right. But to go
back, her nonfiction is great. Like, I love the essays. I love those letters to God that she writes, but she just hated those people. Right.
And Eudora Welty
loves
them. Yeah.
Loves them.
I when I wrote a little thing for my Facebook page about doing this conversation with you, I talked about how I was going to skip the essay on knitting because if there's like one thing that I know that I will never be able to do and I'm not interested in, it's knitting. And I thought, oh, come on, it's Ann. And it's got some of my favorite lines in it. And the one of them is when you're young and you're in Europe and you're carrying your knitting around. And it's so you, because you go up to somebody. It's so pragmatic. It's so straightforward. It shows me that who you are now is who you've always been. You say, I've made a mistake. Can you help me? I love that so much. Just as much as I love your grandmother teaching you and with her. And what are you laughing about?
Because I'm thinking about you today saying to the guy, sir, excuse me, can you open my bottle of water?
That was yesterday.
We're relying, it's like Blanche Dubois, we're relying on the kindness of strangers.
Strangers want to be kind often.
They do, and we're giving them an opportunity to help us hourly.
I am. I mean, I'm just a chipmunk out in the world, and I could not get that water bottle off. I mean, I couldn't. I needed to drink it. And that gentleman helped me and said, "There you go, miss."
That's right. Actually, I read some review. I don't read a lot of reviews, but I always read some at the beginning. And one of them said, they were talking about the knitting essay, and she said, it's not like Ann Patchett's trying to pass herself off as a good person. She brutally mocks her friend who's a poor knitter, and she's not expecting us to, feel bad for her or congratulatory for admitting that she was so cruel to her friend who couldn't knit. And I was like, damn straight I was cruel to my friend who couldn't knit. She couldn't knit, man.
And let me get you back on track. Let me get you back on track.
Please.
Okay.
Because you're just the queen of getting back on track, okay?
Okay, I do want to just pause for a minute with radiant patience that your grandmother gave to you when she was teaching you to knit, because to me it is you can put a little equal sign between radiant patience and compassionate truth. That's all I want to say. Those things. That's that Eudora Welty looked at the people in the world with radiant patience and was able to transform that to compassionate truth on the page, which is the same thing that you do. I will now exit knitting and go into Snoopy, because you and I, do you want to hold up Sparky again? Well, Sparky leads to, we're not going to go down the rabbit hole of talking about Peanuts, which we're both such big fans of. But I do want to say that Sparky, who's named for Charles Schultz, but you did not name him Snoopy because it would be too great a burden.
It's too burdensome for us. He only weighs 16 pounds. He's just a little fella. It would be too much.
But you also, Ann, you wouldn't name the pig that you got Wilbur.
No. I regret that. I regret that to this day.
You say, and hold on, Ann, let me get to my right page. 83 here I'm on. I hope that everybody at home is following along.
Is reading along, following the bouncing ball.
This is a book that I like I said, I've bought for gifts for friends, but it's just like, it's a book that bears rereading, and I can testify to that.
The book's only been out. It's only been out for 9 days, so I think to expect people to reread it before they've read it.
And don't be so literal. Don't be so literal. You say in the Snoopy essay, I compulsively reread Charlotte's Web, another book with a great set of lessons about writing. And I want to talk about Charlotte's Web for a minute, and how you have never read it since as an adult. Correct?
Yes, that is correct. I've tried, and I can't. I read the first page, and it's like time travel. I should write a time travel book about trying to read Charlotte's Web and instantly being turned into an 8-year-old. It's too visceral. It's too hard.
So because it just makes you remember exactly what it's like.
It just puts me, I was so obsessed with that book, and I read it so many times. I actually feel this way about Joni Mitchell too. It's like I can hear the opening bars of Blue and I have to shut it off because all of a sudden I'm 19 and I'm in college, and it's not that it was such a painful time, but it's just painful to.
Ann?
Triggering.
Oh, there you froze for a minute for me.
Did I freeze?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but Ann,
do you have anything like that, Fluff, that's triggering?
I'm a chipmunk, and everything triggers me. But it's I wonder if you can, and I don't know that I've ever asked you this explicitly, but can you say what it was in Charlotte's Web that brought you back to it again and again as a kid? I mean, can you articulate that?
Well, it's very much like a Kate DiCamillo novel. It's that the thing that we believed happened was happening, which is when we, the humans, turn away, the animals begin to talk, and they are afraid, and they are trying to solve the problems, many of which we have created for them. They're trying to save themselves. And it's just exactly how I thought the world was really organized.
Yeah.
So that
Everything.
there was just really, it was very comforting to keep going back. Also, I lived on a farm.
Right. Well,
And I had a pig, I had horses, we had chickens. I was a tiny little thing. I was your size. I didn't grow until I was in college, but I would, shove myself into some tiny cabinet or something and just read that book, or be out in the barn and read that book again and again. I never read the other ones. I
yeah, you
only
didn't
read
read.
that one.
Yeah, you didn't read, and it's my experience is the reverse. I never read Charlotte's Web as a
Right.
kid because of Black Beauty, and I wouldn't check out any book with an animal on the cover after that. And Wilbur looks so worried, and it's so like I'm happy for you that it did that for you as a kid, and I'm sad for you that you can't go back to it, because it is. The language, I mean, I reread it every year, the same as I reread all of Eudora Welty every year, trying to figure out how he did it. And wait a minute, I'm not gonna let you run away here. So hold on. So I want to talk about, how my friend of my youth, my best friend that I grew up with, Tracy Bailey, had the same kind of experience with Charlotte's Web. And that she would
What,
just
that she can't read it again, or that she can't stop?
no, she has been able to read. I guess she's braver than you are, Anne.
And maybe I should just try again. I reread the end of it recently. Well, when I was thinking about using that quote as an epigraph from
Right,
the
let's
book,
read
right?
it. Let's
Sure.
read it. Let's read it, because I'm here ready with it, and it undoes me every time. And for all of you people out there, Anne's title, These Precious Days, comes from the Sookie essay, which you'll get to eventually, because Anne thinks you haven't read all the book yet because it's only been out for 9 days. I disagree. I bet you have. But it occurred to me in the middle of the night, one night,
Yeah.
wait a minute, that's one of my favorite passages in all of, not in this book, in all of literature, is this passage. And so it goes to the great, how we, even somebody like you, is writing behind their own back, and pulling on that memory of Charlotte's Web without even being aware of it.
Well,
So,
and let me say, because what I was thinking about was the Kurt Weill song and Sinatra,
right.
September song, These Precious
Right.
Days.
And I know that you were, I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
that you weren't thinking about that, but like this was part of it too, I think, without
Sure,
you even
absolutely.
knowing that, because that's the beautiful thing about kids' books is it's such a gift. We carry them with us for the rest of our life. They shape who we are. Okay, it's towards the end. Charlotte, said Wilbur after a while, why are you so quiet? I like to sit still, she said. I've always been rather quiet. Yes, but you seem especially so today. Do you feel all right? A little tired, perhaps, but I feel peaceful. Your success in the ring this morning was, to a small degree, my success. Your future is assured. You will live secure and safe, Wilbur. Nothing can harm you now. These autumn days will shorten and grow cold. The leaves will shake loose from the trees and fall. Christmas will come, then the snows of winter. You will live to enjoy the beauty of the frozen world, for you mean a great deal to Zuckerman, and he will not harm you ever. Winter will pass. The days will lengthen. The ice will melt in the pasture pond. The song sparrow will return and sing. The frogs will awake. The warm wind will blow again. All these sights and sounds and smells will be yours to enjoy, Wilbur. This lovely world, these precious days. I cannot get through it without tearing up. And it's like, it's part of, I think, I don't know why, when I asked Tracy Bailey why she came back to this book so much as a kid, she said, I wanted to know if she thought it was going to turn out differently. It's like, is that why you're rereading it? And she's like, no, it was like, I thought that I couldn't bear it. And then I found that I could bear it. It was also beautiful. I found that I could bear it. And that's all in that passage, right? It's like,
life.
You're okay. You will be strong enough to survive this. And
Yes.
yeah. And that's also what your book does. It tells us we'll be okay.
Until we won't. I mean,
Right,
I feel
right.
almost like this is a book that tells us we won't be okay, but that in this time, it's all going to end. It's just all going to end. But knowing that and really spending time thinking about it makes us open our eyes to this moment.
Right, and it takes us back to Charlie Strobel. Wait a minute. Page 57 for our readers at home. The trick is in the decision to wake up every morning and meet the world again with love, right?
Yeah.
And that makes me think of, and this is the last way I'll direct everything in this conversation.
That's not true.
But I'm so remember Tavia's father, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the laminated prayer. Can you say it? The laminated prayer that you find at the end of How to Practice.
Everything that is not ladder falls away.
I have everything I need. All that is not ladder falls away. And everything that is not ladder is love. What brings us back to Eudora Welty and compassionate truth and radiant patience. And yeah, that's that. And what do you want to say?
I love you, and I appreciate you doing all of this. That it kills me a little bit to think of you going through a book that you've had to read so many times. At every turn, every essay in this book, I think you read and told me that I hadn't quite stuck the ending yet. Every single one.
Well,
it's really good. You just need to work a little harder. You're just like missing one beat at the end. And then I would think, damn it, you're right. And you were always right. Even when I really thought I had stuck the end, as soon as you said it, I was like, I didn't stick the
my
end.
favorite time that happened, and it was varying degrees of you, being reluctant, was the nightstand. And I really, really pushed there. And what came out, because when you did the Eudora Welty lecture, and I watched you read those words, so moving, because again, it just all ends with love, and I can never, and you made yourself tear up as you were reading that. You, crusty old you.
I know, which you don't say that on my birthday.
And it wasn't always me pushing you, like my friend Heller pushed you on a Suki harder than I ever pushed you, I would like to say. So
yeah,
which is an interesting point, Anne, because Miley Lloyd did it's a good thing for people to hear, I think, how many different people read for you, because it goes to that thing of how everybody thinks, oh, it must be so easy. You're Ann Patchett. A, it comes out right the first time, or B, when you do it and then you give it to somebody and they say, no, do this. You say, no, I'm Ann Patchett, I won't. But you're always, it's humbling and wonderful. I think humble is another word that Charlotte weaves in the web for Wilbur. Humble, radiant. You are those things because you listen, and you might grumble a little bit, but you're so willing to work, and it's such a wonderful thing to see.
I think that, thank you for saying that. And I think that for both of us, the older that we get, the more established that we are, the harder it is to find people who will say, you know what, you didn't stick your landing that time. You need to go back and do it again. There is a young woman who works at Parnassus Books who just sold her first novel.
Oh, wow.
And did I not tell you that?
No. I mean, so much has been going on because you've been signing every book in Tennessee. Yeah.
This is such a great story. So Lindsay, when she got out of college, she came to work at Parnassus, and she wanted to get an MFA, and she applied to a bunch of graduate schools, and she didn't get in anywhere. And so there she is, still at the bookstore, thinking she was going to get to leave, and she didn't get to leave. And I said, I'll work with you if you want. I've said this to so many people who worked at the store, and nobody ever takes me up on it. I said, I'll be really, really hard, really awfully hard on you, but I can help you. She would give me a story. I would rip it apart. She would come back 4 days later with a revision. I would rip it apart. We did that all year. She applied to graduate schools. She got into one place. Off she goes to graduate school. She writes a novel. She sends it to all of these agents. Nobody signs her. She rewrites the book and rewrites the book. She can't find an agent. She winds up coming back to Parnassus. I help her find an agent. The agent, I make her rewrite the book. 2 other people, read it. The agent makes her rewrite it 2 times. Anyway, she just sold it to Doubleday.
Oh,
Great deal. I mean, big deal. And I said, everybody is going to remember this story as, Lindsay went to Wyoming and sold her first novel to Doubleday. Wow. She just, every door opened for her. And I said, I've known you for so many years, and I've just never seen anyone get knocked down so many times and just quietly get up and brush yourself off and go back to work and get knocked down and get up. I mean, this takes us full circle.
It sure does. That's just what
you
I'm
were
thinking.
saying about rejection letters and how nobody ever knows. But it is the people who get kicked and get up and get kicked and get up are the people who make it.
Yeah, and it's that that relentlessness, but it's also that, and this is so much on display with Lindsay, the willingness to say, "Oh, wait, you want me to do this? I don't think I can do that. Maybe that's what I'm always thinking, but I'll try." And we've talked about that before, about how you need to, you can be the most talented. I always say that I've sat in rooms where there's the person to the left or the right of me is way more talented than I am. But then they get to the point where they have to compromise, they have to rewrite, or they have to be relentless, because it kicks you in the teeth. Again and again, you get kicked in the teeth. But Lindsay, is there a title for the book?
There is. Yeah, there is.
Can we say it or not?
Okay.
You
know what? I think I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's hers to announce. But yes, and it was finalized today, and it's fantastic. But this also goes back to not needing approval.
Yeah.
Because when all those people say, "I won't be your agent, I won't be your editor, you're not allowed in school," what they're saying is, "I don't approve of you. I don't approve of your work. I'm not giving you my stamp. I'm rejecting you."
Right.
And then the person has to say, "Wow, without your approval, with your distinct disapproval of what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it."
Right.
That is the dividing line. That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's not just my dad, but it's like, you don't approve of what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah,
and that's a compass.
And we've talked about that. I know we're almost at our time where Eric comes in, but I just want to say that was one of the first things that we talked about, was that both of us had that "I'll show you." Yeah. And it's not mean. It's just, I will show you. You're not, and it's a wonderful quality, like you said, to bottle up and give to anybody who wants to make art.
Because you can't teach someone that. That is really something that you have or you don't. That ability to get kicked down, or frankly, get exploded, get celebrated. and you have to be the same person either way. That's why my
Right.
father, if made us memorize all those poems. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. Yeah.
Right. And Anne,
Yes.
you've done that because you're still absolutely Anne. Wait, Erica, before you come on with the questions, I see we've gone past the time, but I just want to say, in the essay, There Are No Children Here, it's one of the things that I love about it. Like when I read that one, it's like, well, for the love of Pete, she was Ann Patchett before she was Ann Patchett. She was not going to let herself get messed with. She was not going to let herself get pushed around. We love you. Thank you for writing these essays. Eric, come on and let's see if people have questions.
I'll be delighted, but first I have to thank you both. It's amazing to hear two great writers talking about such real stuff. It's a delight for us all. Reminding our audience, you can purchase these precious days. Yes, the supply chain is a little sluggish, but we can get them to you. We might still have signed book plates. I'm not sure. All I can guarantee is this is a great book. It'll make your day.
And Eric, who's on the cover?
Look.
Sparky.
On the back of this couch right here. That's Sparky. And he's like, put me down. I want to go back to sleep. Okay.
Also, I'll just point out the great double cover. Nice trick.
Yeah.
2 for 1.
Nice.
Something written about in the book. You get to hear the whole story. But let me get to some of these audience questions. They're really good. And we're going to start with one from somebody who probably, unlike so many of us who came to Ann Patchett's work through the novels, came to your work through an earlier book of nonfiction, Truth and Beauty. Nice bold title, by the way. And they want to know if your process is different when you write nonfiction and fiction.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. Fiction is really, really hard for me, and nonfiction is really easy. And the reason is, I do not think that this is necessarily true for other people, but in nonfiction, you know who the characters are. You know where the story starts. You know where the story ends. You know what the arc of the plot is. You know what the setting is. Basically, all the things that I struggle with to figure out in fiction, in nonfiction, they're just already right there. And so nonfiction becomes about observation, personality, and writing. And those 3 things I've pretty much got in the bag. So nonfiction feels a lot like a vacation. In fact, I have often wondered why it is I have not devoted my life to doing the thing that seems so much easier and happier. Why do I keep crawling back to the thing that is really hard? And I don't know what the answer is. Is it just that it's more interesting, or that I do love a good kick in the teeth? I don't know.
Or challenging.
Right. More challenging. Although I will say we had Jesmyn Ward in the store once, and I was interviewing her, and I asked her that question because I love her fiction and I love her nonfiction. And I said, which is harder? And she said, well, Anne, why would you even ask me that question? It's nonfiction. Nonfiction is so much harder. So you never know.
That's right. You never know. Well, another question about process. We'd love it if you both tackle this one. Do you spend more time in the planning of it, the thinking of it, or the writing of it?
Anne, you take that because we're so different. It's so interesting. So go ahead, Anne.
Thinking and planning, more time consuming and way more fun. You, Fluff?
Yeah, no, I don't think and plan at all.
No thinking. There is no thinking going on there.
By the time Anne sits down to write her book, her novel, this is not with nonfiction, she already knows she's been carrying it around for years, and she knows what's going to happen. I sit down like with a word, a phrase, a rabbit, and I go by the seat of my pants. It's totally different. And like, I was working on this book that's out now when Anne and I became friends, and she's like, can I read it? And I'm like, no. my teeth will fall out if you read it. It's just like I can't. Anne can talk about what she's carrying around. I can't talk about it, and so it's totally different, which is
Yeah.
a wonderful thing for everybody.
Yeah.
There's no right way to do it.
Yep, absolutely.
And the only wrong way to do it is if you want to do it and you're not doing it. So
yeah,
That's a good point. Well, this might be fun to bring into what you were just talking about, because someone has observed that neither of you resides in the place where you're originally from. And they're wondering about the role of place in writing. How does place inform the writing? And do you think you'd be a different kind of writer if you, stayed where you came from?
I moved to Nashville when I was 5. So I think that I qualify for living where I came from. I was born in Los Angeles, and I have very strong family ties, but I did really grow up here. And I always think when I go for a walk in the woods, I think that's my underbrush. That's what I always think. Those are my weeds. I know those weeds. Those are the same weeds I grew up with. Those are the same shrubs I grew up with. Yeah, I did not go far at all. In fact, the street that I live on is the street that I rode my bike down when I was a kid, because my cousins who I grew up with lived about 2 blocks from where I'm sitting right now. And I mean, when I grew up with them, I lived with them for years at a time. They were my stepfather's cousins, and they sort of raised me. And I would ride my bike down Whitland Avenue and think, oh, if only someday I could live on Whitland Avenue. That's how far I've come. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I didn't know about the cousins on Whitland Avenue. And
Yeah.
I think, I just think about you and the 5 years old from LA to Nashville, and me from Philadelphia to Central Florida. And then how I probably wouldn't be talking to y'all if I hadn't come to Minnesota, because Minnesota, like, it was away from the South. I could see the South, and the South was my way in. And so I don't know, I would have been a totally different writer if I hadn't come here. Also, lots of support for writers in Minnesota. So, yeah. Okay,
And it's
Eric.
interesting because when I went back and read stories that I had written in college, they were so Southern. And I went to college in New York, but then I moved back to the South, and I never write about the South.
Yeah, right. No, it's fascinating because you had uncovered some of those in the Great Excavation, those stories. Right. Yeah. And they're just, it's like you thought, well, I can at least have this. I've got the South as an arrow in my quiver. Yeah.
Yeah, and a geography like Kate. I'm a big fan of the Eudora Welty essay in here, and one moment I love is when you just drive to her funeral, and it's like, wow, that is freedom to just not just geographically, but in the mind, to just get in the car and do that.
And I just never gave it a thought. I was like, well, I have to be there, and that I so believed that I would be standing in the street in my black dress with the throngs of short story worshipers. But no, I was like one of the very first people at the church. Had
Eric,
a beautiful self.
Does that make you cry at the end? That essay with Anne at the funeral, or do you want to admit to crying? It's so beautiful.
I'll admit to cry, absolutely.
Yeah. Greatness had come through once, which is really all that we could hope for. And the world that had been so justly represented took back the one who loved it best.
And can I just say,
that's so fabulous.
How much I tried not to write that essay. So after I went to the funeral, I was befriended by Eudora's 2 nieces, Liz and Mary Alice, who were sisters and the only surviving members of the Welty family. They got me to go on the board of the Welty Foundation, and we've stayed friends. I've just stayed friends with all of those Welty people over the years. And when she called me and said, we need you to write the introduction to the new release of the collected stories. And I said, oh, no, Mary Alice, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. That's too big. It's too much. Get Richard Ford to do it. Famously, of course, Richard Ford mowed Eudora Welty's lawn when he was a kid. And he is the great standard bearer of all things Welty. Get Richard to do it. She was like, no, it's you. It's you. It has to be you. No, Mary Alice. And Mary Alice just kept saying, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You are going to have to do it. And I was like, I don't want to take all that time. It's like too big of an assignment. It's too intimidating. I don't want to do it. And she just kept saying, I know. I'm sorry. You are going to do it. Never gave me an inch. Never.
And we're all the better for it, Ann.
Yeah, right.
That's the truth. And you're the better for it.
And I'm definitely the better for it.
Yeah.
It was really just one of those very hard things. Ugh.
Yeah, I bet. But no, I'm so grateful it's in the book because, as you said, what did you say earlier? An uplifting book about death?
Yes.
Yeah.
A joyful, uplifting book about death. Yes.
That's exactly right. And that piece certainly adds to that. We got to squeeze in a couple more questions here. They're so great.
Okay.
People are always interested in how people become friends. One reader out here is phrasing it beautifully because they wonder if you became friends because you both write about the power of love to transform us. Is that right?
That's beautiful.
No, nothing that spiritual. No. If you read this book, there is an essay about Kate and how we became friends. And it's all mapped out, and it has to do with the fact that I own this bookstore and that she came to visit and that we met and that I had this awareness that I knew she was a big fan of mine and she had read my books and I had not read her books because I didn't read children's books because I don't have children. And I suddenly felt really like a jerk. I mean, there's just no other word. I just thought, oh God, you're such a jerk.
Yeah, yeah.
How is it that you don't trouble yourself to read the work of someone who you really like and who clearly really likes your work? So I went to the bookstore. I got one book. I got two books. I got all the books. I read every single last book. I read every word there. That's a lot of books. Just the financial commitment alone of buying every one of the titles. And then I had to track down your email. Don't remember how I did that, but I did. Probably
Nikki.
Jennifer Roberts.
Nikki gave it to you.
Nikki called Jennifer. Yeah, Nikki got it done. And then after that, we very quickly became friends because then we both were people who loved each other's work.
Yeah.
Is there a particular book by each other that you recommend, that you love, especially that you find yourself recommending to
well,
others?
let me
Wait, just shut up. Can you just put a sock in it for 1 second in your whole life? Okay.
There's a whole story that we can tell. Yeah.
Magician's Elephant was always my very favorite. And probably, that's kind of the book of my soul. The Beatrice Prophecies, God, I love that book so much. And as I said to Kate, and as I say to everybody, it's like the week that Charlotte's Web came out. That's the book that the people will be reading long after we're dead. But you know what? I also love the Mercy Watsons and I love Deckawoo Drive and Where'd You Go, Baby Lincoln? And
okay, now, okay. Let me just answer my part about Ann because I remember being the first. There's a big book expo where you go and there's a cocktail party, and I had just written When Dixie and I got to go to that, and I turned around, and there was Ann Patchett. This is before Bel Canto. And I said this to Ann, so it was like 2001 or maybe even 2000. And she said, but what didn't exist then? I said, you existed for me because I found those books as you were writing them and loved them. And then when it came to the time for us to exchange books in our friendship, as we were making our friendship, she said to me, do you have, first editions that you would like? And it's like, yes. Okay. So I asked for Commonwealth because I don't know how you did it. And I've reread it several times and I still don't know how it is a piece of brilliance, and it is just masterful. And you asked for The Magician's Elephant, and I said, why that one? And you had sent me an email detailing this really deep experience you had with it, and I never got it.
Yeah.
And I thought, my goodness, I would have given up on me at that point. But you didn't. That's sturdy Ann. I call her Weeble. She's a Weeble. She wobbles, but she doesn't fall down. She's like, okay, Kate doesn't answer this email where she says how much I love this book and why. But that's okay. We can still talk about what we're eating.
That's right, because I don't need your approval.
That's right. There we are. We're full circle. She doesn't need my approval. Yeah. Okay, Eric, I'm sorry. I know you're trying to wrangle us. I can see it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no! I will merely thank you both for this energy, this love, this showing and sharing what this is like. It is a joy to be with you. For all of us who have read both of you for so long and have found such soul and heart compassion. It is great to experience it with you both together as well tonight. We have to wrap up. There's always that feeling like, wow, we could keep going forever. On a personal note, from all of us at Rain Taxi, this is our final event of 2021. We've had almost 50 of these author conversations and presentations online. Each of them has been a joy, and this one, we wanted to end on a high note, and one in which the values and the display of love and friendship were crystal clear and from the heart. So to both of you and to all of our readers out there, please be well and take care of each other. Get this for a friend. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.